All right, thanks everyone for joining us today to learn about the City of Tucson's new Complete Streets policy. We're going to have two presenters today, Patrick Hartley and Jesse Soto. They're going to be giving two separate presentations. So once we get going, I'll introduce Patrick Hartley and then Jesse Soto prior to his presentation. Once we get going here, please use the Q&A tab to ask any questions. We'll be keeping track of those, and we'll have Patrick and Jesse answer as many as possible once their presentation is complete. Patrick Hartley is the Complete Streets Program Coordinator with the City of Tucson's Department of Transportation and Mobility. He's been with the city for more than 1 year, and prior to joining the city, Patrick worked at the PEMA Association of Governments in the areas of long range and modal planning. Patrick graduated from the University of Arizona, bear down, in 2010 with a master's degree in planning. And Patrick, you're on.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. I'll bring my presentation up here. I've got a short presentation on where we are right now with the implementation of the City of Tucson's Complete Streets program, which we are about a year into. So I'll give a brief overview of the overall program policy, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague Jesse Soto to talk more about a specific project that we're currently working on. So for those who may be unaware, the City of Tucson passed a Complete Streets policy in February 5th, 2019 by unanimous decision of Tucson's mayor and council, giving the department really clear direction on how we want to think about planning and designing our roadways. A real departure from, I think, many of our historic practices, something that codified and demonstrated the support of leadership for really making sure that we were meeting the needs of all roadway users, of all system users in the City of Tucson. And the City of Tucson's policy is really explicit on this point. So the intent is to guide and develop a safe and connected equitable transportation network that promotes greater mobility for people of all ages, all abilities, including but not limited to people walking, biking, using transit, driving, or using wheelchairs or other mobility devices. I think key to this is it really includes integrating and prioritizing making multimodal improvements. So, that commitment to recognizing that we need to invest in our streets and use our street space, our space within our rights of way in very different ways than maybe we have historically. And implementing this policy is ultimately going to require a number of difficult decisions and thinking about the trade-offs that really kind of means as we look at that language in the policy. One of the major strengths of this particular policy, I think, is that it wasn't just developed by staff kind of sent up the line to mayor and council for action. It was actually the culmination of over 2 years of community work, community building, education, and really establishing and building momentum behind kind of communicating to residents of the city what complete streets are, the value of them, and building that support so that when it came to discussion by mayor and council, it became an easy action for them. So we began in October of 2016, and this was really a community-driven effort to create the Complete Streets policy led by a local organization called Living Streets Alliance. And they were building the community, doing the groundwork, building the community support, doing the education, and later on actually engaging the department, the City of Tucson. So by the time we did bring this to mayor and council, it became a strong partnership driven by the community, guided by the community to get the support and the buy-in of the city's council. The policy itself is really guided, driven by these series of guiding principles, which I think are key in our framework that we want to use for all of our transportation decision-making going forward. So looking at making sure we're thinking first and foremost about safety, that as we do transportation design and planning, that we're considering accessibility of all people, people of all ages, all abilities. Strengthening our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusivity. In particular, right now we're going through a long-range planning process, and we are looking at what that means for the types of projects that we want to pursue in the future of the City of Tucson, and really kind of defining equity in a way that is consistent with the language of that policy. Looking at the land use connections of our transportation investments, to understanding that the Complete Streets approach isn't going to be something that is going to be a one-size-fits-all. that it has to be responsive to the current and future development patterns and making sure it's meeting the needs of the users in those areas and is appropriate and supported by the different types of land use that we're looking at. That it is being used to kind of protect and preserve Tucson's environment, that we're incorporating green elements into our road projects, and also that it supports the economic vitality of the community. One thing that has been really beneficial to me as I've been charged with taking the lead on implementing this program. One of the strengths of this policy is that there are very explicit implementation steps that are kind of the roadmap for how we take the Complete Streets policy from that kind of high level policy language and translate it into a program that is implementable. So the policy itself contains these 14 unique and distinct steps that we want to pursue within the department to make sure that we are actually moving this policy forward. It includes things like reviewing all of our existing standards and policies to make sure they're consistent with the policy language passed by Mayor and Council, our departmental policies. Offering training opportunities both to staff and to community members to make sure that we are kind of in line with the latest thinking and the best approaches to street design. Looking at developing kind of a prioritization framework for how we make our investments in the city, as opposed to just necessarily being driven by a couple underlying conditions of the road network. Let's develop a more comprehensive framework that incorporates a lot of those guiding principles of the policy, considering, including equity and land use, and et cetera, et cetera. And as you can see on this table, we have, at this point, a year into the policy development, so far completed in their totality about 2 of these items, but 12 of them are in process to some extent or another. So one of the first kind of major initiatives that we're undertaking is developing a City of Tucson street design guide. And what the purpose of the street design guide is really to translate and interpret the intent of the policy to the specifics of road design. So as we move forward, as we undertake some of these projects, we're providing clear direction to the consultant community, to our staff, to understand what it is, what a complete street is in the Tucson context. So really the purpose of the street design guide that is currently in draft form and we're looking at finalizing is to align the guidance and the improvements to the public right-of-way with the Complete Streets policy. So it's identifying kind of the preferred dimensions, geometrics of the roadway, and other preferred design elements that we want to see in all of our transportation projects. It also establishes a new street typology, which is going to be more responsive or more reflective of the urban environment in which that facility is operating in. So the intention of the street design guidelines that we're working on are to be guidelines, not a new set of standards. However, the guidelines, once approved, would inform any future standards or policies that we adhere to in the department. And the intent is really to be descriptive of how we want the streets to look in the city of Tucson, based on the language that's in the policy, talking about meeting the needs of all users, being comfortable places to be. What does that look like in execution? They're supplemental to existing engineering practice. It's not a whole-scale replacement of everything that we do. And it has multiple audiences. So it's being presented in a way that can be used by city staff, project development teams, but also we hope it's something that the public will engage with, ultimately to make them strong advocates for complete streets type projects. The use is intended to be really at kind of the planning level, planning and early design, referenced early in project development. This isn't an engineering document. And within it, throughout the entire design manual that we're developing is a commitment to flexibility, understanding that there are going to be extenuating circumstances on all of our projects that are going to need flexibility, but hopefully what it is communicating is really the intention of the department that these are the types of decisions we want to make when we have X number of feet of right-of-way for a corridor, for a roadway improvement. This is how we want that space used. And in all cases, we want to make sure that we are deferring to the engineering judgment as appropriate to make sure that, we're building the safest facilities. So one of the things we're looking at is developing a new street typology, which is going to be complementary to the existing federal functional classification system. So it's not going to be a replacement for the functional classification system, but really it is a structure by which we can kind of guide design decisions and think about what we're trying to accomplish with a given corridor, given facility, and what users we want to prioritize in our investments. So we're looking at a structure of 9 new street types that will be rolling out in the city of Tucson, which are some combination of the function of the roadway, including operating speeds plus volumes, as well as the urban environment. So we've got a type for kind of downtown university streets, the roads that exist around the University of Arizona or within the downtown of the city, neighborhood commercial streets, which are smaller scale, kind of residential scale commercial, urban thoroughfares, urban connectors, which are more dense areas of the city but high volume roadways, suburban connector, suburban thoroughfare, same idea as the urban context, but obviously within a suburban context, neighborhood streets, shared streets, and industrial streets. And this is how we are applying that. So this is a very busy screen, I recognize that, but this is intended to communicate kind of how we're approaching, laying out our streets. So we've broken each of our roadways based on the specific street type into the preferred dimensions of the roadway elements. So we've taken the pedestrian realm, the street realm, and the median realm, and you look at the frontage zone, sidewalk zone, and the pedestrian zone within the street realm, for example. And what we're providing as a department is kind of a preferred minimum maximum dimension within each of those street design elements. So we're looking at a downtown University Street, for example, and the sidewalk, our preferred width of the sidewalk, knowing that's going to be a high activity pedestrian area, would be a preferred width of 8 to 12 feet. Minimum is 6 feet, and we're not going to establish a maximum. And then if you look over at the other side, you can see that narrower travel lanes would be in those operating environments. Comparing the urban thoroughfare to the suburban thoroughfare, for example, you would have a narrower sidewalk necessarily as the preferred width than you would in the downtown environment, a little wider inside travel lanes, and on and on. And then the suburban, which would be assumed to have a higher operating speed, has wider travel lanes, for example. So this is kind of the reference, the lookup table for the design considerations for each of those various street types. The guide also provides a number of cross-sections, example cross-sections that are really used to illustrate kind of, again, what the complete streets concept is intended to look like within the city of Tucson and how we want to prioritize space within a given right-of-way. So we're looking at wrapping up the design guidelines, which I think will be really a valuable tool for us in the implementation of the complete streets policy as we move this forward. So we have closed the comment period on the design guide in June of this year. We're working on updating the document based on those comments, doing document layout, adding graphics, and we're looking to bring it in front of mayor and council for approval and review in fall and winter of 2020. The nice thing about this and what makes this really easier on a staff perspective is that we have already established the support of mayor and council around these concepts through the policy, and they've given us our marching orders and directions to develop these types of documents to rethink the way we design our streets. So we're confident that that should be a pretty straightforward exercise, and we already have the support of leadership within the city. Once we approve the guidelines, it's going to give us departmental direction then to begin to update all of the other standards and policies that we use in road design. So looking at our technical standards manual, our access management guidelines, engaging with the fire department around the Tucson Fire Code to make sure everything is in alignment and consistent with what the overarching goals of the policy and the guidelines are stating. We've also started a couple of initiatives in the meantime, so we wanted to make sure that we were keeping the momentum going around the policy. We didn't want to do the policy kind of full stop, release the design guidelines, a year and a half later. So what we're currently working on is the Move Tucson Long Range Planning Initiative. And while this is a long range plan, what this is really doing is allowing us to prioritize where we want to make our complete streets investments, the types of investments we want to make, and where we want to put our funding for the next 20 to 25 years in the cities. And we are using and thinking about that kind of principles, that guiding principles framework that we have in the Complete Streets policy. So we've been doing a lot of public engagement work around the development of Move Tucson for the last year, and really see this as kind of the funding mechanism for implementing, major complete streets projects in the city of Tucson, or at least the plan for funding, I should say, allow us to pursue funding in the future. We're also been expanding the use, again, in partnership with community organizations, Living Streets Alliance as a department, of quick build projects, working with neighborhood groups to do traffic circles, paint and post curb extensions, other types of projects, kind of help visualize some of these concepts that we're promoting, as well as build kind of community ownership of some of these assets, and experimenting with them, and one day potentially looking at opportunities for making them more permanent. But just saying, like, these are some options we have: lower cost, quicker, we can deploy, and we can look at making some of these more permanent with the community buy-in. Also, just a great opportunity for kind of community festivals, things along those lines. Finally, as we are doing some major repaving work in the city through Proposition 101, we're taking those opportunities to look at how we restripe our roadways and seeing if there are opportunities to reallocate space as part of our paving. So not doing a full reconstruction of the roadway or moving curb lines or anything like that, but where we have overly wide lanes, for example, we are looking at narrowing those up, putting in wider bike lanes, buffered bike lanes where possible, and in some cases, if we have budget for it, putting in some protected bike lanes, doing road diets, things like that, kind of those quick touches, partnering or piggybacking on a program that we have funding for and is already moving forward. We are also begun our largest kind of named Complete Streets project, which is currently under construction, and we're all very excited about. And I'll turn the floor over to my colleague, Jesse Soto, who can talk more about what we're doing in our first Tucson Complete Streets project.
Great, thanks, Patrick. I realized that I forgot to introduce myself. I apologize for that. I'm Kevin Thornton. I am a Senior Transportation Project Manager and Director of Sustainability for SOMAS. And as a cyclist and a bike commuter, complete streets are important to me. So I appreciate this, and I actually went through some of the complete streets working groups with the Living Streets Alliance back in the day too. So I'll introduce Jesse Soto here real quick. Jesse Soto is a Senior Project Manager for the City of Tucson Department of Transportation, Mobility, Planning, and Programming Division. He's been with the city for 20 years and began his career as the Chief of Staff for the Ward 1 Council Office for 6 years. He joined the Transportation Department in 2006 as a Project Manager and Community Liaison. Jesse also served in the U.S. Army for 23 years, 13 years active service, and 10 years in National Guard, retiring in 2010 with multiple combat deployments. Thank you for your service, Jesse. Besides project management and community relations, Jesse also serves as the Department Title VI Coordinator, ADA Coordinator, Public Arts Manager, and Neighborhood Traffic Management Program Manager. Jesse's colorful background allows him to take on complex situations and deal with issues head-on to achieve an equitable solution for all. He is an excellent team player with demonstrated experience of working collaboratively at all levels to ensure successful implementation of projects. And Jesse, you are on.
All right. Hey, welcome all. Thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you, Patrick, for your intro there to this Complete Streets. So I'd just like to welcome everyone to this morning to my presentation in regards to the 12th Avenue Complete Streets project. 12th Avenue, this project along the 12th Avenue corridor between Irvington down to Drexel, it's a very exciting time for us because of the fact that this is the actual kind of the first kind of step that we're taking as far as the city of Tucson to actually initiate complete streets kind of model that hopefully that we'll be able to emulate throughout the entire city of Tucson. So yeah, so I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Okay. So yeah, so again, so just I want to have a quick thank you to our partners that helped us out in designing this this venture as far as Complete Streets, which was Kimley Horn. They really helped us out to get us a lot of information and design and go out to the community and seek a lot of the input from the residents in the area. The planning for the Complete Streets along 12th Avenue, we have a study limit between 44th going north or south out to Drexel Road. That was pretty much our primary focus area. We did a few studies as far as some safety analysis studies and some other studies along that corridor, just to kind of see what was going on. We're getting a lot of feedback from the community as far as there were some issues that were going on with speeding, high volumes of vehicles, crashes going on in the area as well. So we looked at the area and we kind of assessed the overall, what was going on. And so we did a planning from October, 2017 to August 2018. And then we went into design as far in December 2018 to February 2020. And now we are presently in construction and hopefully getting ready to tie up the final pieces in October of this year, which is about a month away. Actually, we're almost in October, so it's a few weeks away. A few years ago, like I said, we looked at 12th Avenue, and the purpose of looking at 12th Avenue was to look at the multimodal street improvements that we could, probably do within the area, was to establish priorities and investments along 12th Avenue to bring in a design that we could hopefully find some funding for, sometime in the future and make the improvements along their reality. Traffic volumes along 12th Avenue range anywhere between 6,500 vehicles per day to 19,000 vehicles per day. So it gets pretty, heavily used as far as, the area of Ajo, going up to Irvington, and obviously we all know Valencia as well. During the 5-year, period, we did a study as far as 2011 to 2015, where there were 17 crashes, 17 there were 17 crashes and 3 involving bicyclists. 14 of the bicyclist and pedestrian crashes occurred after 5 p.m. A sidewalk and driveway inventory was also performed along 12th Avenue. They showed that 19% of the area didn't have actual sidewalks, and approximately 1/3 of the sidewalks along the area abutted to nowhere. And so we looked at that, and we also looked at the multiple, driveways along 12th Avenue that really gave us a feel as far as to what was going on in the area. And there was a lot of concerns because of the wide amount of driveways that every business had along the corridor there. So we also looked at some bus stops. The other concern was the bus stops along 12th Avenue. There's a lot of ridership along 12th, and we have back in the we did an activity report. So there was an activity report done concluded back in June 2017 that showed that the highest ridership was at the actual bus stop on Ajo and 12th Avenue. It had a number of 236 passengers per day. In addition to the Suntran bus services along 12th Avenue, there's also a staging area for private transportation as well. There are such services as Tufesa, that is right there on 12th Avenue and Irvington area. And that provides services out and from Northwest Mexico.
Jesse, we're not seeing your slide switch. I think we're still on slide 3. Is that the slide that you're on, or?
No, it should be on slide 5. What do you see now? Sorry.
We see the kind of the PowerPoint, not the presentation part, but the one where you kind of edited it in, and it's showing slide 3. Yeah, maybe present. Yeah, press the little present button down at the lower right of your screen. The slideshow, present slideshow button.
No, it's not showing anything.
Now we see, I'm not sure. Oh, we do see slide 25. Under display settings, is there an option to switch the main screen? So now, okay, yeah, so now we're back, we're seeing slide 3.
Slide 3. Okay. Sorry.
Well, maybe try a resume slideshow, or that's where you just were, isn't it?
You see slide 4 now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's do it like this.
Okay. Yeah. Now we see slide 5.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Geez. All right. So yeah. So during the actual design phase, we had developed 3 different concepts along the corridor there. The first concept we called basic concept. It was just to look at installing new sidewalks and ADA compliant sidewalks throughout the corridor. Also make small improvements such as some stamped asphalt and some small little modifications as far as some landscaping. Sorry. The second concept was, we called it the moderate scenario. The moderate scenario included sidewalks, some reduced driveways, put in some stamped asphalt along the median there, but also looked at opportunities of possibly closing some of the driveways along the actual corridor. The third one is we call the enhanced. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can see that. Yes, okay. So the enhanced concept. This one here was pretty much the full complement of everything. This is where we had ADA sidewalks behind curb. We had a buffer between the back of curve to the actual sidewalk, a 6-foot sidewalk. On street, we narrowed down the actual effect of the road from 5 lanes down to 3 lanes, and also included some on-street parking. But the most important feature on this one was also the buffered bike lane that it offered, as well as a 6-foot buffered bike lane along there. So this concept was really the one we were targeting, really the one we wanted to try to go for on that. We had a lot of community input. We went out to multiple events, as far as meeting with neighborhood associations, meeting at different events, going out into the public, doing some workshops, and trying to introduce them to what we're trying to look at and display, as far as for them to grasp what we're trying to do, within the area. Obviously, a lot of this was new. People didn't really understand it. They weren't sure, how it was going to happen. They were really kind of hesitant to even try to accept what we're going to be doing out along 12th Avenue. It took a lot of discussions, many discussions, a lot of front work to kind of get out there and and just assure people that, what we're doing is something new. And obviously, we as humans, kind of nervous about change sometimes. So we don't want, we look at things and right away we don't like them. Therefore, having the discussion with the public and business owners and also tenants was our biggest priority. We wanted to make sure that that we were getting their feedback and we're listening to them, because that is important as far as a partnership with the community. I'm not sure what this is showing now. So here's just a comment form as far as what we had out there. We were presenting with this comment form. We were just kind of getting feedback again from the public as far as some information that we were just requesting as far as what they felt was the need, and it proved pretty handy for us. We used it in all of our meetings, and it provided a lot of good information as far as what the public was looking at and what we needed to do within the area. So now going into the design phase. Again, the design phase is something that we wanted to ensure that not only were we, the city of Tucson, also looking at all the different complete street models and what we're going to do and how we're going to approach this one, but also talking to the business owners and people that are immediately impacted by this, by this reducing the lanes, or also just leaving the way, what they wanted to do and what, we wanted to hear from them as far as what the need was. So the design phase, it took a while. It took a lot of modifications. I know Kinley Horn, we going back and forth on some of the driveways, for example. There's something like 280 driveways throughout just that area alone. So it was, how do we, reduce those driveways and not feel like we're taking something away from the actual businesses, throughout the area, because it was important that, we closed them down, we shut a lot of them down, because neighbors and residents, walking through the corridor, through that area, they weren't feeling safe because every other step they were running into potentially a hazard with the driveway, in the area. So the design took a while. So in this design, finally concluded that we're going to come up with the reduction of lanes from 5 to 3 lanes. Look at new sidewalks. Put in some protected bike lanes. Also enhance pedestrian crossing. Pedestrian refuge islands. Enhance bus stops, and then reconstructions and driveways. So this picture here is a rendering of the before and after, kind of. It shows, the road on 12th Avenue, looking at Drexel going north off of 12th. Just kind of, if you can, look at, you see at the bottom picture there shows the reduced lanes, but also shows the medians and the refuge, and also shows the protected bike lanes back off, in front of the curb. This one here is the rendering off of Nebraska, looking north. Again, same features, just kind of just giving people a good visual to what was being presented out there. Sorry about that. So here is the model that we actually used, for the cross section along 12th Avenue. We kept the 11-foot center lane, turn lane, 10.5-foot travel lanes. You got a 10-foot buffer there. The 10-foot buffer also includes on-street parking, but it acts as a buffer protector also for the 6-foot bike lanes. And then we have about a 3-foot buffer, behind curb, and then a 6-foot sidewalk, ADA compliant sidewalk. So this shows just the, how reducing the lanes, one going southbound, one going northbound, keeping the center lane, but also shows the medians and also the buffer protected, for the protected bike lane, and then just shows a 6-foot sidewalk behind curb. So here we had, obviously there was a lot of issues as far as concerns regarding, how, there is ADA issues. We had people that were in their using walkers or wheelchairs, and they couldn't gain access to that bus stop located right there on 12th and Nebraska. They actually had to go onto the street because there was no ramp either. It was just a 6-inch vertical curb along there. So got a lot of concerns about that area. And so it feels good that, now when you go out there, it's finally completed. And now, you have ADA accessibility all the way through that area back in there. And now, residents, people with, with the ADA issues don't have to go out into the roadway anymore. And now they can travel safely along the new sidewalk improvements that have been added from this project. Here are the protected bike lanes. Just kind of shows as far as you got your buffered area. Then you get your 6-foot bike lane. Again, the buffered area. If you look at the example, you get your 6-foot 6-foot bike lane. Then you have your 10-foot buffer with on-street parking. And then you have your travel lane. So it allows, people to feel a little bit more safer as they travel through the area, and to also feel just like, they can get through there, a lot smoother, a lot better. We're also going to install a hawk light over on Wyoming and 12th Avenue. We had a lot of also feedback from the community as far as there is a bus stop right there on the west side of the road. That is used by a lot of people in the area that go back and forth. That picture of that, where the second picture on your right, kind of shows where people are just crossing at will. And again, that was just an issue that we wanted to address and make sure that if that bus stop is being widely used by residents of the area, we want to make sure that they were able to cross that area safely. And then this right here as well, this is just the refuge. We put a couple of these refuge islands along the entire stretch there along 12th Avenue for a few reasons. Again, if you look up on top of, on that picture there, you'll see the bus stop up there. There was about 4 fatalities that happened along 12th Avenue, along 12th Avenue, where unfortunately people get off, the bus, they try to cross the street, and they've been hit. So we wanted to not encourage a crossing in that area, but also just kind of give a little safety buffer, a little safety area for people to actually be able to walk through. This just shows in the bus stop area as far as how we created that the buffer there along there, so that we can have a smooth travel lane, but then the bus dips off to the side to go and pick up passengers. And then again, like I said earlier, we just reconstructed new driveways. Again, we had like 288 driveways. We narrowed that down from 288. I think we cut that in half. So allowed us to create a smoother travel for ADA, and people walking and using that area to not feel as if they have to be in a constant alert mode, walking through there. We're now in the construction phase. Again, we are there now to where, again, we're hopefully finishing up rather soon. This just shows some of the pictures as far as some of the landscaping that we're doing within the area. We'll have that landscaping, under contract and monitored and for maintenance and watering for the next 2 years. We want to make sure that we establish it and it looks, beautiful within the area like it should. So we'll continue doing that as well for the next 2 years, cleaning maintenance on that one.
Hey, Jesse.
Yes.
We're about out of time here.
Okay.
We do have one question we need to answer. Do you want to run through these last?
Yeah, sure. I'll just finish up real quick.
Really quick?
Yeah. This just has a sidewalk. Again, just some of the sidewalks that we put in. Again, we just did some bump outs there as well due to telephone posts, couldn't move those. And then that concludes my presentation. Well, one thing I just want to put out there is just, I can entertain questions, please. I just wanted to put out there that, this was a strong partnership, with the community, and we had a lot of good input from the residents in the area, also business owners, and the engagement that we just brought to the table, I felt was just, over the top, and I want to thank everyone for that participation. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent presentations, Jesse and Patrick, and exciting changes coming to Tucson streets. So that's cool to see. We do have at least one question here, and I'm not sure which one of you want to address this, but the question is, does the City of Tucson intend to develop policies for shared use paths also?
Jesse, you want to handle that one?
I don't really know the answer to that question. We hope to. You know, I mean, pathways are, you know, that's a whole nother, I've done a few of them within residential areas that neighborhoods really, they tend to use because they, you know, they like to have that safety factor. But yeah, we hope to design something in the future that will include pathways.
And we're providing some general direction in the street design guide that we're working on. I think that's something we could develop more fully, particularly where we have like side running paths that intersect with local streets. I think we need to work through some discussions in terms of what traffic control devices we would use in those instances. We've been inconsistent. I think there are some places where we have a stop control for the path user. There are places where we don't have a stop control for the path user. Sometimes we use a yield sign. So I think there are some policy language that we would benefit from developing.
Yeah, I think it would be great to have a regional discussion on that as well, since there's so many paths throughout the region now. All right, we have another question. This one is probably for Jesse. Are there any issues with the 4-lane section transitioning to this new 2-lane section? And what are your thoughts about roads that may have different capacities and different design features such as this?
So yeah, so the concern, you know, we got a lot of feedback from, you know, residents and business people in the area as far as reducing the lanes. I mean, obviously everyone just was really nervous, concerned about that. It was an issue. And again, it's just about the presentation as well. But you got to give and take. You know, the biggest concern was the amount of speeding going through that area. So how do you reduce that? Obviously we can't put speed humps out there. So what's the next best thing we can do? Slow down the traffic, narrow it down, bring it down to where, you know, people are not driving 55 miles an hour through a, you know, 30-mile zone. Narrowing that down to, you know, to where people now can have to go at that 30 miles an hour and not travel, you know, at a high rate. So yeah, so, but, you know, I think that for the most part now, looking back, we're getting a lot of positive feedback from the area there. That are really learning how to use it and learning what it's all about. And there's a lot of good things happening out there that I think they're only going to improve, you know, so look forward to that.
Let's see, we have one last question here that we'll be able to get to before we're out of time. Was there any thought given to keeping the bike lanes outside behind the bus stops instead of having the buses and bikes have to cross at each stop?
We did look at that. Yes, definitely looked at that. We again got a lot of feedback as far as, you know, what is the safety and what, you know, where are, you know, putting the bicyclists out into the kind of the roadway or putting them behind a buffered area. And a lot more people felt that putting them behind a buffered area will be a lot safer. And the bike community really also endorsed that as well.
Great, and I think that's about all we have time for today. Appreciate the questions and the presentations were excellent. And everybody have a great rest of your conference, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.